Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Riverfront. This is episode number 483 of the world's most dangerous podcast. Also, your second episode in 3 nights. This is the show where we discuss the Cincinnati Reds and occasionally Paul Janish, Soft J, Paul Janish. I'm your host, Chad Dotson. With me this week, again for the second time this week, Nate Dotson. How are you, Nate?
Listen, Chad, I'm not too hot. I'm just tired of the Reds not being exciting, not having any fun players. I'm tired of Cincinnati being a dead, lifeless city. We need something to inject some enthusiasm into this team, if only.
If only there was something that could be done to inject some enthusiasm. Listen, this is going to be an all-viewer mail episode, and we got some great questions that are going to let us dive into the news of the week. But obviously, everyone knows what the biggest news of the week is because we devoted an entire episode to it on early this week on the show here, an emergency episode. Obviously, Elly De La Cruz has arrived. But one thing I want to talk about just very briefly before we get into the questions, because some very good questions, both from our friends at Patreon and from Twitter.com. The enthusiasm part that you were talking about. Someone, I think it was the what's the guy's name? He joined Tim Daniel at that Reds from Cespedes Barbecue. Anyway, he
Jordan
was
Schusterman.
Yes, Jordan. He was at the Elly De La Cruz debut game, and he posted something about it was after the game and people going nuts around the post game studio there, on the concourse at Great American Ballpark, but even just watching on television during the game, the intensity in the stadium that we've just not seen. It wasn't a huge crowd, but it was still just a raucous crowd. And Jordan was kind of like marveling over that. And my buddy Alex Ham, at Giant Asian Man on Twitter, by the way, at Giant Asian Man, a very descriptive Twitter handle for a great guy. And also a fellow University of Virginia Cavalier. I got to say that. Shout out to the Who's. We are not going to talk about college baseball today, but it's possible Virginia's 2 wins away from the College World Series.
Maybe.
Shout out to A. Ham. Anyway, he said something to the effect on Twitter of, Cincinnati, when the Reds are good, it's a different town. And the Reds aren't even good. This is what it's like when they're just try a little bit. And he said, it's just Cincinnati is at heart. I know the Bengals have taken over in recent years, and it was interesting to watch Joe Burrow hitting bombs in batting practice the other day. But at heart, he says Cincinnati is a baseball town. I don't know if that's still true anymore, but I've always said, despite the issues we've had with the team, when the Reds are good again, the park's going to fill up. And you know what? I'm going to be there too. So anyway, any quick thoughts about that, Nate, before we get into our questions?
Yeah. What has a bigger impact on the attitude of a city? Eight games that happen once a week, or 81 games when the fans are filling up Great American Ballpark? It's just so much more vibrant when it's a good baseball team. And the Reds were Cincinnati's first love, so that's always going to be a little extra special. And I think that the locals, they know that. So they go hard in the paint when the Reds are out there trying.
Yeah, I've written 1,000 times about this concept that I don't know that I came up with it, but I've written about it 1,000 times, called the lost generation of Reds fans. And I think the Reds really have done a disservice to a lot of kids who are not going to be Reds fans. They could have captured if they'd just been trying over the years. But a certain percentage of that, and I'm probably a pretty high percentage of those people, will come back. If they're still local, if they're not moved away, they'll come back because it's fun. Great American Ballpark's a good park. And when there's something interesting to watch, it's fun. This week it was Elly. A couple nights ago we were talking about electric debuts, and we mentioned Jay Bruce. We mentioned, who else did we mention? Homer Bailey. I think I mentioned Homer Bailey.
Yeah.
And my buddy Chris Garber messaged me afterwards, and he was like, dude, I was listening, and how could you not mention Aroldis Chapman? And we kind of did mention him a little bit, but not in terms of an electric debut. He was another one that had an electric debut. But there was just something about this, the first 2 games of Elly De La Cruz's career that was just mind-blowing. Just absolutely mind-blowing. We're gonna get going here and forget the viewer mail questions and just talk about Elly for another hour, probably. But it was special. We'll get into that as part of the questions. How about that, Nate? Any other final thoughts before we dive in? None? Let's go.
No, let's go.
All right, before we begin, we got to say, Nate, got a new member of the Beer League softball team this week. New member of the Beer League softball team, new patron at patreon.com/Riverfront This week, welcoming him into the fold, Brandon Brooks. Now, let me tell you, that's a solid name.
That's a baseball name. It's a strong name.
Strong baseball name. Strong Beer League softball name. But sometimes, I don't know, sometimes a name will jolt something in my head as to what position they are. But I got to say, I think Brandon may be like, he can just play any position. Because nothing's coming. I think he just may be above average at every position. And, 900 OPS, something like that, and wherever you play him, he's going to hit. He's a switch hitter. He can play every position. That's what I've got. I don't know what you have, Nate.
I like it. I think that he doesn't really care too much about his defense because my guy hits nukes.
Okay. They
had to create the only 2 home runs an inning rule because of Brandon Brooks. So he'll be.
I love it.
Yeah, he's going all around the diamond and just hitting taters. So love it.
There you go. Well, we need some more power hitters on the team. So Brandon Brooks, hey, glad to have you on the Beer League team and on our team here at the Riverfront. Look forward to engaging with you on the Slack channel. I messaged you. You should have received an invitation to that. If you didn't, message me back if you haven't gotten that yet, because we're going to get you in there, man. Because let me tell you something. This has been as fun a week to be in that Slack channel as there has ever been. I was working, had to work late, was earlier this week, and didn't get to follow all the game as it was going. But I went back and read all the Slack messages from the game just because it was such a wild conversation. You guys are amazing. That's a fun part of being part of this. Now, one last thing, I guess, before, because we didn't get a question about this, so I can't not mention this one thing just because I know it's a viewer mail only episode, but for just a brief second, can we just admit that I was absolutely 100% undeniably correct about the future superstar status of one Will Benson. Will Benson with the walk-off home run in Game 2 against the Dodgers. Not the highlight of the game. A couple of other highlights of the game that we'll get to later, but should have been the highlight because I want to give him a vulgar something in the middle. Some blanking Benson, but I can't. This is a family show. Nate, first of all, how correct was I about Will Benson? That's the first part of the question. And the second, it's a two-parter. Second part of the question was, how much did you love his bat slam and jawing at the dugout and just the exultation from Will Benson? I was going nuts.
It's too early to tell how right you are. You are right today, that's for sure. And there are few people happier that you are right than me. I'm a huge, huge Will Benson fan. But you said it wasn't the highlight of the game. I don't know if I agree with that. Elly's bomb was electric. Of course it was. But I don't think I have gotten more fired up this season. And definitely, I've not been that fired up since Nick Castellanos flexed on the Cardinals. And before that, it was Clinchmas. It was the Jay Bruce walk-off. Yeah. When he hit that and he turned around to the dugout and lost it, I was on the couch. I was half asleep. I was ready for the night to be over and just following the Reds game because I had to. And I got up and I was fist pumping. My wife almost divorced me on the spot. She's like, I can't be with somebody this insane. I said, but honey, Will Benson. And she got it. She understood.
Of course.
She understood. It was the most exciting, electric thing I've seen in God knows how long. So happy for the guy, the team running out of the dugout and going nuts. Oh man. That's my favorite moment so far.
Yeah. You know what? It's one of the best moments of the season. It really is. I mean, and you're right about the team. You could tell they were happy for him. And for him, you could tell he had the awful start to the season, got sent down and started poorly at AAA. And, he talked after the game, just, but I just refining my pregame work. And I don't know. He's the conversation he had with Jim Day. If you can't root for Will Benson, why are you even here? I mean, he's one of probably the 3 best players in Cincinnati Reds history right at this point.
Yeah,
they should go ahead and retire his number 30. He's the best player everywhere, number 30 for the Reds. No, all jokes aside, though, just seeing him, it was his first big league home run. Seeing him just, I don't know, it felt like a load was lifted off his shoulders, and you just had to be happy for the kid. He works hard. He still, the thing that I worried about coming in was, is he going to be able to walk enough? He improved last year in his walk rate. He's going to be able to walk, and this year that's not been a problem. I think he's this close to being. He's not an Elly. He's not one of the inner circle prospects. But no way he's Elly. But you know what I mean. He's not one of the big. He's not the Matt McLain, that inner circle. I'm telling you, this guy can be a part of the core of the next good Reds team. And again, maybe I'm out of my skis once again, and he'll make me look dumb. But anyway, I was happy to see Will Benson.
Yeah, you have to be, and you have to get out on your skis a little bit because the tools are there. The guy's a freak. He's huge. He's fast. He can hit the ball a mile, as we saw, 107 miles an hour off the bat on that one. And since he got caught up, he sneakily put together a 113 weighted runs created plus in his 12 games. So I think that if he has even kind of figured it out, you start playing games, you start moving pieces around, and instead of wondering where the Henry Ramases of the world are going to play, you start wondering where the TJ Friedels of the world are going to fit in, where the Jake Fraley's could fit in. Guys that don't have near the ceiling of a Will Benson, obviously, and perhaps a much higher floor.
Right.
But if somebody like Will Benson puts it together, that could lead to some tough questions. And the Reds have control of him for a long time.
Right, and you're talking about the weighted runs created plus, and you're right. He's turned up, but it's a small sample size. We'll concede. But you know what else was a small sample size? Early in the year when he was awful, and the game seemed like he was a little overwhelmed. I don't know that he was, but it seemed like he was a little overwhelmed early in the year to be put in that position with one of the greatest franchises in the history of professional sports, the Cincinnati Redlegs.
Yeah,
but
he
anyway,
just had to go down to AAA and take some hitting tips from Elly De La Cruz.
Yeah, well, I think everybody needs to do that. All right, let's get into our viewer mail questions. These questions, many of them come from our friends, as they always do every week, at patreon.com/riverfrontcincy. That's one of the perks. If you join the crowd there, you get priority in viewer mail questions. But we also have a number of them from our friends at twitter.com. We're at riverfrontcincy there. Yeah, it's a garbage website, but we have the best followers. We have absolutely the best followers. The first question comes from Clayton Duncan.
Clayton Mariano Duncan. I love it.
Clayton Mariano Duncan. Royce Clayton Mariano Duncan. Dude, you are 2 former Reds middle infielders in one. How have we never noticed that before?
Amazing.
Oh, my. It's amazing. Although we don't want to. Mariano Duncan was a pretty good player. Royce Clayton, not so much. His question is this: where do we put the Elly statue? And can it be next to the Luis Alberto Bonilla statue? Sorry, I haven't said that in a long time, so I had to go ahead and drop it in. Where do we put the Elly statue? I'll give a quick answer to this one. You put it wherever you want it. You move Johnny Bench's statue. You move Joe Morgan. I don't care. Put it wherever. He's the greatest player in Reds history, and so you give it priority. Frankly, if it's me, I put it out there, on the concourse or the it's not called the concourse, but outside Great American Ballpark there. Put it with the rest of the statues, but make it twice as big. That's what I think. So
I say we wait until he hits the tundra and then replace the tundra with the statue of Elly De La Cruz.
Oh my goodness, the Toyota Tundra. All right. What's going to come first? Some guy climbing up in there and taking a dump in it, like we heard last year was the rumor, or Elly De La Cruz hitting it's like if that was on DraftKings or whatever, you would absolutely lay some money on him hitting the Tundra. That's the easiest money ever. He's going to hit that. Somebody's going to win that Toyota Tundra this year. I've never been more confident of anything in my life. Am I wrong or am I right?
I can't wait to see it. I also can't wait to see some guy taking a poop in the truck bed. So it's a win-win.
It's a win-win. All right. The guy's up there. He's squatting. This was supposed to be a family show, so I'm sorry, but he's squatting. Elly De La Cruz hits it right then. Knocks him out, and whoever wins the Tundra has to take that guy in his whatever with it. Good Lord. Elly De La Cruz. Since the question was about Elly, we may have some other discussion about Elly later because I've never seen anything like this. I just haven't. First 5 at bats. We had our emergency podcast on his debut night where we were all like, we didn't know at the time we recorded that on Tuesday, if you listened, but the double he hit for his first big league hit, the double was 4 feet above the strike zone, out of the strike zone. He hit it harder than anyone in the StatCast area since they started tracking this. And it's like 8 or 9 years now they've been tracking it. No big league player has ever hit a ball that high above the strike zone as hard as Elly De La Cruz hit it. It reminded me of in the 1990 World Series. Now, I know you remember the 1990 World Series very well. But there was one particular pitch that was about that same place. And Barry Larkin, before Barry Larkin became one of the Reds broadcasters, he actually played for the team years ago. Yeah. And he hit one that was about that high for a double in the World Series. That's what I thought when I saw that thing. But so game 2, our last podcast, we talked about game 1. So let's just mention this. Game 2, first at bat, a home run that literally almost went out of the stadium. It was in the last row up there in the moon deck. Literally almost went out of the stadium. 458 feet. Red's longest home run of the year, by the way, in his first home run. He hit a triple in his next at bat, which, by the way, the fastest time from home to third base in all of Major League Baseball all season long. We're talking about his first 5 at bats of his career here. Okay. He has the 2 hardest hit balls the Reds have had all year long. One 114.8, one 112. And don't forget about his 107 mile per hour ground out to second. And the Reds' 2 fastest sprint speeds of 2023. In his first 5 at bats, that's what he had. There are more questions about Elly, so maybe we can save this, but I've never seen anything like it. And in game 3 today, he had 1 hit, finally got a single, finally got something that wasn't an extra base hit off Clayton Kershaw. I don't know. I marvel at the guy. He's going to struggle sometimes. He's going to have to learn, but after all the hype, for him to start like this, it just, and if you wrote it in a Hollywood script, no one would believe it. That's the way I look at it. It just, it's too much. So anyway, go ahead. If there's some things you want to say about Elly, we got more time later, but I had to wax poetic for a moment.
The only thing more impressive than the start to his career was that time that he, landed that airplane in the Hudson and saved all those passengers.
Elly De La Cruz.
Which I would believe if somebody told me that happened.
Oh, to me, here's the thing that really, I tell you, we could talk the full hour about him, and we're going to have to avoid doing that because we have a bunch of questions I want to answer. But to me, the thing that really put it into perspective for me, again, we're talking sort of about the lost generation a little bit, but I talked a few weeks ago about my son who just finished high school. Just got named to the all-district team. Happy for him. Proud of him. But he loved the Reds growing up. He was Brandon Phillips. Just loved Brandon. That's when he fell in love with baseball, which ended up being his favorite sport. And that's when he fell in love with the Reds. Loved Brandon Phillips. He wore number 4 until the very last game that he played. But in the last few years, I have a hard time getting to watch a game with me. And here's a quote. Dad, the Reds are trash. I'm like, well, you're not wrong. But I've been talking to him the last few months. Elly. Well, Elly De La Cruz is what it took to get him back. I mean, he's pumped up about the Reds again. Not like me, but anyway, this is not the only teenager that's more excited about the Reds than they've been in years. And it's going to keep happening. Next question, let's go, because we had like 5 questions that are almost exactly the same. So I'm going to take them all at the same time here, and then we'll just try to talk about it a little bit, although I'm not sure we have great answers for it. But then again, if you've ever listened to this show, and we're in episode number 483, we've never had a good answer to any question. Jerry Suduth, the Reds are playing better and in a meh division. What realistic moves can be made to improve this club to a point to make a run at the division title? Thanks. Joey Gaditza, our good friend from Canada. Canada is North America. We're America, and below us is South America, I think, and then Central America. I don't know how this works. So it turns out we can have some nice things after all as Reds fans. I wonder if the addition of a legit outfielder and a rotation arm could really propel them to the top of the division. Kyle Kapler, beating a dead horse. But what should the Reds do at the trade deadline? I think I know what everyone wants to do, but the starting pitching trade market is not good, and I have thoughts. Besides Shane Bieber and maybe Dylan Cease, there are really no other elite options out there. Parenthetical information here. Sure would be nice to have Luis Castillo, says Kyle, but I digress. Saying that, do you go all out and overpay for one of these guys? Overpay for someone more mediocre? Trade for a rental? Or some other option? Look at a lefty reliever. One more thing. It is a good thing we have all the shortstops now going forward to get pitchers in the future. And then finally, Brian Brockman. This is from Twitter, at Brian Brock 87848. That's kind of like Beverly Hills 90210. At Brian Brock 87848. Will ownership try to improve starting pitching so this team has a shot at the playoffs? So, Nate, that's, it's a bunch of people saying, what are the Reds going to do at the trade deadline? We're close. We're in the mix here. The Reds are at the moment in third place. 5 games out of first, 5 games under 500, but 5 games out of first, 4 games back in the wild card at 29 and 34. What should they do at the trade deadline? I have an unpopular answer.
Ooh.
My answer is probably nothing.
That's very unlike you.
It is unlike me. First of all, someone mentioned rental. No, absolutely not.
Agreed.
No reason to get a rental. Now, if you can go out and deal, I would trade any of the guys in the minor leagues for someone that we might have after this season for the next 2 or 3 years. If you can get a starting pitcher, and that's what we want, with where the Reds have some team control for a couple of years. I don't know if you can do that at the trade deadline. I just don't know what's going to be available. If you can do that, yes, I absolutely do it. I would not trade any of these prospects for someone that we're just going to have for the rest of the season. I know they're close, and I know you need to go for it when you can go for it. And I may regret saying this, and I may change my mind tomorrow, but I don't think you're going to get maximum value. I don't mind trading anybody for just about anything that improves the big league club. I'm really reversing everything I've said in 483 episodes of this show in some ways. But I think what I do is in the offseason, like Kyle was talking about, all those shortstops, I start looking to trade. Noel V. Marte, I'm sorry. I mean, I'd love to have him on the Reds, and I hope he's the Reds' third baseman in the future. That'd be great. But can you go get a guy that supplements what's looking like in the next 3 years can be a pretty solid rotation with the kids? Can you trade him for someone like that? Okay, I'm all in there. A better outfielder, a more elite outfielder. I think the Reds do need to add an outfielder. So I think an outfielder and a pitcher, then you can always improve the bullpen. But if I'm going to get anything at the trade deadline, it's probably going to be a reliever. The Reds bullpen's been pretty good, but you can never have too many relievers just because they'll be a little bit cheaper. I don't see. I don't want the Reds to overpay, I guess is what I'm saying, for a rental. And that's what I fear. But so far, the Reds have not shown much inclination to do that. Although Nick Krall did say this week he's not going to rule out trying to, add something at the deadline, but he was really just saying nothing. People overreacted. But anyway, Nate, that's my hot take. I don't know if you have some thoughts or if I'm wrong or whatever. Go ahead.
I don't think that's too hot of a take. I think it's important to keep in perspective that the Reds are 6 games under 500 right now. So let's not mortgage the future for a team that is probably going to flame out in the wild card round anyway. Now, that said, I'm interested in pumping the brakes a little bit and seeing where this team is as we get closer to the trade deadline. If they've climbed back above 500, if it looks like the only good team in the National League is the Braves and maybe this young, plucky Diamondbacks team that nobody saw coming, and there's an opportunity, okay, I could feel a little bit different. But what I do agree with is that they should not trade for a single rental. I think it was Kyle who mentioned Dylan Cease. I think that's a great guy to have on the radar. Eduardo Rodriguez for the Tigers is having a great season and has 3 more years. I think that's the move. It needs to be a guy that's going to be there for the first at least half of whatever this window is. And if we think it's going to be a few years, then we need a guy that's going to be there for 2+ seasons, in my opinion. And I think I know who that is, as long as they can agree to an extension. Shohei Ohtani.
Bring it on, Shohei. I actually may.
Also,
I can see. No, go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
A lot of people keep saying that they want an outfielder, and that's another one that I would really wait and see on, because they might have the guys for that. Spencer Steer as one of your corner outfielders, perfectly fine. If Will Benson is the dude, there you go. And then you got TJ Friedel and Jake Fraley fighting for that last spot. Nick Senzel playing a couple days a week. I don't know. Their outfield might be good enough.
Well, I think, yeah. With respect to the outfit, I think Benson may be the key to whether you need another one, because if he can develop into that power bat, they need more power. They just need more power.
Mm-hmm.
Ellie's going to help with that. Eventually, Encarnacion Strand's going to help with that, you would think, but they're still kids. Benson's still a kid, but if he can develop into a reliable power bat that can get on base, then then maybe, because TJ Friedel, I've revised my estimate of him. Of course, he's got to stay healthy, but he could be a guy for the next 3-4 years. He's not going to be a star, but he can be a guy. I will say this: it's very likely, and I hope someone calls me on it. It's very likely that we get closer to July, if the Reds have done what you suggested, and they're literally right in the race. They're above 500.
They're good. They're actually good. We know that they're at least pretty good.
Yeah. If they're there, I probably do say, let's trade for something, because you only have especially in our lifetimes, you only have so many opportunities to go for it. And even if it's just you're trying to get a wild card, and even you said about they may flame out in the wild card. They might, but if you can get that wild card, you have a shot. You have a ticket to the dance.
That fella, Edwin Arroyo, stud shortstop down in A-ball right now. If you can get a good pitcher for him, in a heartbeat. That guy is so far away that I'm happy. I'm fine getting rid of him. Some of these, Hector Rodriguez, even Carlos Jorge, he looks like he might be a stud. These guys that are not even the Double-A yet, you package them together to get a top of the rotation arm you can have for 2 or 3 years. Yeah, I'm okay with that all day long.
That's something I actually was meant to mention earlier. If you're below Double-A, I've said this consistently or since this show began. I don't care. You may develop into something. I hope you do. But every player in the minor leagues, to me, is valuable to the Reds only in terms of what they can deliver at the major league level, either in their own performance or in trade. And if you can secure some value for anyone that's below, again, I love me some Cam Collier. I don't want to trade these guys necessarily, but if they have some asset value that's kind of above what the expected return would be on them, because how many times do we see prospects flame out? It happens. It does happen. So yeah. And I think that's more of an off-season conversation in my mind, unless the Reds creep into it. And I don't know, I'm going to be like, go for it. So it's a good question. We didn't give you too many specific names because that's a little difficult thing to do right now, but because I think the more interesting question is, should they do it? And I can change my mind every day on that. Next question comes from Thomas Dennis. Realistically, every manager is going to have their decisions criticized. Dare I even say Sparky was second guessed? Is David Bell right now performing as a good coach based on the team's play? Well, we have this conversation all the time. The Reds are under 500. They are close to first place relatively because it's a garbage division. They are probably, I think this is true. We talk a lot about David Bell in terms of he's very, very rarely – the team's very rarely outperformed expectations under him. And that's why I just think he's just like about 25 other managers, just okay. They may be playing – they're punching above their weight right now. So maybe you do say he's done a good job this year. The fact of the matter is David Bell will not be the manager of the next Reds playoff team, in my opinion. I really don't believe that, unless it's this year and they somehow do it, and then he could secure his – I think they're going to move on at some point, but maybe not. Again, it's the same thing I've answered every time this question gets asked. He's not a good manager. He's not a bad manager. He's a manager. And so if you're not going to get one of the top guys, then I don't care. Keep him. I don't mind him. I like when he got excited the other night, got tossed out of the game. That's always fun to watch. So I don't know, Nate. We've had this conversation before. Do you have any additional thoughts?
I think they should fire David Bell. I think they should fire David Bell for, if no other reason, the fact that he started Kevin Newman each of the last 10 games. And he batted leadoff in most of those, even though his career weighted runs created plus or OPS plus, any metric you want to use against right-handed pitchers, is horrible. Like literally one of the worst regular players in the major leagues. But yeah, he bats in leadoff. I think that he gets thrown out so much that he literally does his job less than almost every other manager. So what are we paying this guy for? No, I do agree with everything you said. And I'm being a little bit facetious, but some of these decisions, somebody on our Slack channel said they think that David Bell loves the scrappy utility, I don't know, like under-talented guys because he was one.
Yeah.
And I think that's too true. And I don't know how you keep Kevin Newman out of the leadoff spot unless you fire David Bell.
Oh, well, okay. You've been pretty consistent in your disdain for David Bell. I wondered the other day when he was leading off. I sort of sat back and was like, what are we even doing here? Kevin Newman leading off? I mean, Kevin Newman is a below replacement level player, and he has been. I don't dislike Kevin Newman. He plays hard. He took one off the mouth the other day. That was rough to watch. But when I saw him leading off, I thought to myself, I wonder, does David Bell, is he confused? Does he think that's Kyle Farmer? Is that why he's still, playing him more than he should and in places in the order that he shouldn't be playing him in? Because he's treating him an awful lot like Kyle Farmer. So I think he's just confused. So dementia has set in. It's sad. I'm sorry, David Bell. I hate that you're going through this. Thomas Dennis thinks he found a loophole. And this is not a loophole, but I'm going to let him get away with it this time. Since I have two first names, says Thomas Dennis, two first names, but neither of them, like Clayton Duncan, are related to former Reds players. Well, I don't know. Are they? Thomas Howard? Do we have a Dennis? Dennis Rasmussen was a pitcher for the Reds shortly in the 80s, I think. So, okay, maybe you win this round. Since I have two first names, I get two questions, right? Who is our great eight? And how many of them are here opening day next year? Who is our great? I'm not sure I completely understand. Maybe who are the
8 regulars not named Kevin Newman? So I'm taking it.
I don't know.
Well,
I mean, look.
Let's just kind of go around the diamond. And if we're talking position players, let's say catcher, Tyler Stevenson. I think we both agree on that. He's been swinging a much better bat lately.
Oh, hasn't he, though?
Mm-hmm. So we have some combination of Jonathan India, Matt McLain, and Elly De La Cruz in the infield. I think they're all here opening day next year. If you had to bet one way or the other.
I think so. Yeah. No, I mean, yes, I think you're right. I want to argue, and I can't argue, but it's the Jonathan India piece that we're going to have to get into at some point in depth here on the show, but today's not the day.
So there's 4, and then Spencer Steer, I think, is a pretty obvious 5. He's going to be here. He's putting up a heck of a season right now. Underrated, not quite talked about enough. And that's where
left field.
That's where it gets a little funky. I'm gonna go with my boy Will Benson. I would not put money on this by any stretch of the imagination, but I choose to believe that the Benson Assance is real, and he's going to be there. And then center field, TJ Friedel, and I think that's it.
Did you mention Christian Encarnacion Strand?
I did not. I was only going for players that had already been in there, but if I'm allowed to include him, then yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I'm thinking more towards opening day next year. Who are the guys? And he's got to be. He'll be on. You would think he'll be a guy next year.
And if I was the manager and I was the owner and I had made all the decision, Joey Votto's also one of those guys.
Oh, without question, Joey Votto is still part of the Great Eight until he tells me he's not. So. Yeah. I don't know. But the point really that you're trying to make here, I don't want to speak for you, but the point you're really trying to make is just that Will Benson's probably the best of that entire group.
Is the GOAT.
Yeah, thank you. Seth Shaner. I heard the kid who caught Elly's first home run had skipped football training and will be in trouble after getting TV time. What would you miss to catch a future legend's first home run? And what would you ask for in return for the ball? So that's kind of a couple questions there. And a similar question from our buddy WV De La Cruz at WV Red Meat on Twitter. Great follow. Go follow him at WV Red Meat, friend of the show. If you caught Elly's first home run ball, what are you asking for in exchange for it? So let's take both those questions here. First, what would you miss to catch a future legend's first home run?
I wouldn't miss the birth of my child.
I would miss the birth of one of my children. I'm not going to tell you which one.
Probably looking back at it, wouldn't have missed the birth of my first niece, but the nephews, yeah, they can pound sand. Yeah, I would miss any day of work. I would miss. I don't know. There's a lot of things I would have given to have been at either of those first two games.
I would miss nothing important in my life is the real answer. I would miss work. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would miss, getting kicked in the nads. I would miss, a workout, having to go run. I would miss that. I really wouldn't miss very much to catch a first home run. I just wouldn't. I don't know. Well, that's the next question. So let's get there. What would you ask for in exchange for that ball? The kid had the ball, the Elly De La Cruz ball that he caught, and he evidently got autographed baseballs, I guess, for his buddies and the picture with Elly and all that. It was a fun moment, whatever. And on Twitter, there's this discourse because there's always a discourse on Twitter. I would have held out for X, Y, Z. I'm going to tell you this, and maybe – I don't know, people are going to think I'm stupid, or I don't know what people are going to think about this, but this is the actual God's honest truth. If I caught that ball, I would be like, can I get a picture with Elly? And just give him the ball. If it's the, 700 and whatever home run and it's, I can sell it for auction it off for $1 million. Oh, well, I might consider doing that.
Yeah.
But, Elly De La Cruz's first home run ball, it may be the first home run ball of a Hall of Famer. And maybe in 20 years, that ball is worth a lot of money. But I'd be like, he's a kid. He's excited, 21 years old. Let me get a picture. I'd like to have a picture, whatever. I don't care about an autograph. I don't know. I've never asked anybody for an autograph. So I don't know. Am I crazy, Nate? Should I ask for more? What do you think? What would you do? This show me that I'm an old guy here, basically.
The question was talking about if it was a legend. Well, this one was specifically Elly. If he doesn't pan out, then, the ball's worth nothing. So what would you give up for? What would you ask for in return? Whatever they offered me. They came up and said, hey, we'll give you a bat. We'll give you some merch. I'll say, well, can you throw in a couple tickets to a future homestand? Something like that. But I'm with you. It means more to him than it ever will anybody else.
Yeah, you just said if he turns out to be nothing, it means it's worthless. But it's not worthless to him. Yeah. It's not worthless to this kid who just did his first big league home run. Yeah, you said something. I might say, season tickets. Can hook me up with season tickets, something like that. I would take.
I'll give it back to you if the Castellinis sell the club.
Sell the team, Bob. Oh man, now that would actually be a fun headline. I'm not giving this ball back until I'll give it back to Dave Bob Castellini. So I can get some headlines. No, I'm not going to do that. I don't know. I don't think if they offer me a bat, I don't want a bat. Maybe I'll get it and give it to you as a Christmas gift or something. I don't know. But it's interesting because some people are like, I'll hold out for this, and this. And I did see some people on Twitter saying, why did the kid just, get autographed balls and a picture for this. He could have gotten so much more. And I thought, what are you talking about? I don't understand.
You're riding high right there. You're not going straight into negotiation mode. Because our boy West Virginia Red Meat asked the question, maybe be like, I'll take a porterhouse from the nicest steak restaurant in Cincinnati. Hook it up. Get me a reservation. Pay for it. Nice glass of scotch. Wash it down with. All right, we're good.
What I'd rather have is a porterhouse cooked on the grill at WV Red Meat, or our buddy Carlos Guevara and hanging out and having a I don't know, probably a water or a lemonade. That's all I drink, but and hanging out with some guys. Nate, we've been talking about doing a live show in Cincinnati. You want to do that?
I think it sounds like a good idea, and I think we might have to announce something sometimes. Maybe.
Stay tuned. James Urban, I like this question because I got to take a break. Our buddy James Urban, the elderly James Urban, the late James Urban. This question is for Nate because Chad is still dead to me for one more week since he called me old. Are we sure that Elly is in fact a real human being? This one's for you, Nate.
Well, I don't want Chad to take a break very long, so no.
Come on, dude.
James, I am not sure if he's a real human. I've never seen a human being that can do the things he does. So I have no comparison. I can't be like, oh, look at him. He's doing all of these things that lots of other human beings in history have done. Because they haven't. He's the only one.
He's the guy.
I have a strong suspicion he is, but am I 100% sure? No. All these reports about UFOs and stuff lately. Could it be?
Nate, I have a viewer mail question for you from me. Trivia time question, essentially, for you. Ooh. Can you tell me? This is hard. When is Elly De La Cruz and Will Benson both hit home runs? You may have remembered that. When is the last time that Cincinnati Reds teammates both hit their first major league home run in the same game? When is the last time?
1907.
You saw that tweet. Yes, 1907.
I knew it was 19 something, but I was like, I got a 1 in 9 shot here. Nailed it.
A century.
I am the smartest man alive.
Yes, that's actually true. Eric drinks his own pee. Oh boy. Oh no, this is a family podcast, not a Billy Madison podcast. Hooper Powell has the next question. Hooper Powell. Hooper, by the way, I'm still waiting for some video. If you listened last week, Hooper did an open mic set, some stand-up comedy. I'm still waiting for some video of that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see how that went, or at least let me know when you're doing it again. This seems fun to listen to. Unfortunately, I'm too cheap to get a cable provider that has them on TV. Hooper, you're in Columbus. Just do it. Probably getting ahead of ourselves and not sure this front office will spend the money next year. What starting pitchers, if any, would you target in the offseason? Okay. There are 4 that I can think of. No, 5. Hunter Greene, Nick Lodolo. I'm wavering on Graham Ashcraft. Sorry, Nate. Wavering. Andrew Abbott. Well, they've already secured Greene, so let's get Lodolo and Abbott. The 5th, Nate's already mentioned him. Shohei Ohtani. He'll be a free agent this offseason. You got to get Shohei Ohtani. I don't even want to imagine what the emergency episode of the show would be like if the Reds signed Shohei Ohtani. Can you imagine? Oh my gosh. Well, just quickly, I would like the Reds to try to target a starting pitcher in the offseason. I would like them to target a veteran starting pitcher in the offseason. I looked to see at some of the names that might be available this offseason, and there were a couple that stood out to me, but I don't know. Are the Reds going to be attractive destinations for any of these people? I don't know. Maybe with Elly, it's such a fun place. But one guy that's going to be a free agent, Carlos Carrasco, he's had a really good career. He's with the Mets now, Cleveland for a long time, and a really good pitcher for a long time. But, he's going to be 37 next year, and he's not been great 2 of the last 3 years. I don't know. I'm not sure that he'll be a free agent. I don't know. Maybe. A guy that I'm sort of intrigued by that'll be a free agent, Lucas Giolito, from the White Sox. He'll just be 29. He's not a superstar. Pretty good pitcher. Pretty good pitcher. He's a guy that I would target as sort of a veteran guy. Feel free to jump in with if you have any comments on any of these guys. I thought about Corey Kluber again, thinking about veterans, but I think Corey Kluber he'll be 38 next year. I think he might be finished. Good career, but I think he's probably finished. Let's see, who else did we have? Luis Severino. He'll be 30 next year, and he's had some injury issues, and he's in his 3 games this year. He's not been great I think the injury issue is the biggest problem, certainly with him. But I don't know, pretty good pitcher, and I'm not sure that he'll be a Yankee after this season. But there are 2 pitchers that are going to be free agents, Nate, that this is me maybe. Well, anyway, I'm going to give you these 2 names. They're going to be free agents. If the Reds sign one or both of these guys, I want to know how happy you would be. Here are the names. Number 1, Sonny Gray. Number 2, Tyler Mahle.
I knew you were going there.
They're going to be free agents. I don't know. Sonny Gray for real.
Back.
I mean, maybe not Mahle. I forgot he's been gone. I forgot. But Sonny Gray is going to be 34 still, but I imagine he's actually going to be, the way he's pitched, he's probably still be in demand. Another injury guy, but Sonny Gray back with these kids, that's the guy I want back. I want Sonny Gray. Oh, it's me being sentimental, but what do you think?
Yeah, I love it. I knew you were going to go there. If you didn't, I was. If they were going to pony up big, I would love to see him make a run. It's big if. We know they're not going to. But Julio Urias for the Dodgers, just a stud.
Yeah.
He's due for a big contract. Aaron Nola is up there. You said Giolito, and I love that one.
Yeah, that was my favorite of the ones other than the former Reds.
Yeah, Frankie Montas for New York. He played in Oakland all those years, so he's used to playing for a team going nowhere. Maybe he wants to turn one around. He wants to help. He wants to be there when they start turning that around. I think that's kind of it for me. If you want to go like a different veteran, Martin Perez, I think would be a fun one. Marcus Stroman from our friends over in Chicago has been lights out this year.
I've wanted him for years.
Pretty much any name we just mentioned would be awesome. And quite frankly, the Reds need to go out and try to get 2 or more of the names we just mentioned.
They do. They need to get 2 veteran pitchers. I mean, or trade one of the kids for someone that's a AAA ready to that we haven't for a while. That's great too. But Johnny Cueto, there's a club option, but if the club turns down the option, Johnny Cueto. So I don't know. So there you go. That's we did more research than we usually do on the show. Nathan Connor, look at the active roster. Nathan, my friend, do you know that I look at this active roster like 12 times a day and a single tear goes down my cheek every time? A different type of tear that usually goes down my cheek in past years looking at that roster. Sure. When was the last time we had so many future dudes on the team at one time? Bring up CES. Woo. Future dudes. By the way, did you hear Andrew Abbott's the interview with Andrew Abbott's dad the other night?
Yes. Fantastic.
He had a great Virginia accent, which I completely approve of. Just glorious. Andrew Abbott. Andrew Abbott, who said his pitching coach on his travel team was Billy Wagner.
Maybe a private Tazewell, Virginia.
Tazewell, Virginia, where my son, a couple weeks ago, defeated Tazewell in the regional tournament, the first game of the regional tournament. Hey, right? Go Central High School Warrior.
Woo.
Future dudes. When's the last time the Reds had so many future dudes on the team at one time? I'm thinking 2009. I don't know if they're even they had Jay Bruce and Joey Votto and Johnny Cueto, and they're a little older. Some of those guys, but how many had the ceiling that I don't know that any of them had the ceiling that Elly De La Cruz has, obviously. Spencer Steer's ceiling is, I don't know. They have a lot right now. I don't know when it was. 2009, probably. But I'm glad they have them all now. That's a tough question. Come on, Nathan.
Brandon, well.
There you go. Brandon Kamek. Forget CES, he says. Now, Nathan Connor just told us to bring up CES, and Brandon telling us to forget CES.
I don't know what to do.
I'm lost here. His question is, when will the Reds call up Encarnacion Steer? He's the missing piece. I'm gonna get crap for this in this spring training. If for those of you that were listening, you know that I recognize that I was doing it and I kept doing it, but I called him Christian Encarnacion Steer. It's actually Spencer Steer and Christian Encarnacion Strand. The other night, I guess it was before. I think it was before Andrew Abbott's debut. I think it might have been before Elly's, but on the pregame show I was watching, and Corky Miller was in the studio with Sam LeCure and the other guy. And Corky called him Carlos Encarnacion Strand. And I thought, you idiot. How could you mess up his name? Everybody knows. And then I thought to myself, yeah. So from now on, his name is Carlos Encarnacion Steer. That's his name from now on. Next question. We've got to get through these. This is taking longer than it should have, Nate. I'm sorry. Gary Hilliard. Can you help me wrap my head around how rare it is for an athlete to possess the combination of physical gifts that Elly De La Cruz possesses? Excluding pitchers, he throws harder than anyone in MLB. He hits the balls harder than anyone in the MLB. And he is as fast or faster than anyone in Major League Baseball. Is this Eric Davis rare? Bo Jackson rare? My answer is Eric Davis. I mean, I think he's the most talented player I've seen in a Reds uniform since Eric Davis. And people don't realize Eric Davis is one of the most talented players ever to play Major League Baseball. Bo Jackson might be pushing it just because Bo Jackson was a freak who was, potentially could be a Hall of Famer in two sports. So I think I'm going to go with Eric Davis, but it's extremely rare. I mean, when someone told me today, O'Neal Cruz with the Pirates last year, and O'Neal Cruz is he got hurt, but he's not Elly. He's just not. So I don't know, Nate, if you have any others. It's just exceedingly rare, I think is the question.
I think what we're dealing with here are people hearing Eric Davis and not understanding what that actually means. Go look at Eric Davis's baseball reference page, and you take, before the injury set in, give us 10 or 12 years of that kind of production, and you are talking absolutely about one of the greatest players who's ever played the game.
We wrote a chapter about his 1987 season in the Big 50. Second edition of the Big 50 coming out soon. But anyway, and that chapter will be in again because people don't realize how good Eric Davis was. And so we went back to 87 and found a bunch of quotes from people talking about how amazing he was. And one of those quotes was from a guy named Willie Mays. Willie Mays, who has a great argument to have been the greatest player in the history of baseball. I mean, I don't think I say he is, but he's inner circle. And you could argue that he is. He said, I'm honored to be compared to Eric Davis. Willie Mays said that. So that's who I'm going with. And if you don't think that's if you don't think that comparison is a big compliment, you don't know who Eric Davis was. Rich Thompson. I got to give Rich credit. Rich's questions, he puts a lot of thought into them. And I never know what he's going to come up with. So here's Rich's. Gentlemen, recently while channel surfing, I came across one of my favorite sci-fi campy movies, Flash Gordon, starring Sam Jones as Flash. As I was watching the movie, I thought, wow, Sam Jones, a.k.a. Flash Gordon, looks a lot like Tyler Stevenson. Do you see the same resemblance? If so, wouldn't it be cool to see Tyler do a cameo in a possible sequel, maybe as the son of Flash Gordon, savior of the universe? So I looked up Sam Jones from Flash Gordon, who for his time was just a handsome man, glorious blonde locks.
Ooh.
I don't see the comparison, but I would like to see Tyler Stevenson in that movie.
I
Better that
absolutely
than-
see the comparison. Good call.
Do you really? Really?
100%.
I'd rather see him as Flash Gordon,
Yeah.
Tyler Stevenson, than as Flash, because this current Flash movie, I don't know. They say the guy that plays Flash is kind of a dirtbag. I don't know what that's all about, but
Great call, Rich. Don't listen to
yeah, sure, exactly. That's a good advice. Next question comes from Jeff Carr at Jeff Carr. That's with 3 F's at Jeff Carr on the Twitters. Jeff Carr, host of one of the hosts of one of our favorite podcasts, the Locked On Reds. How far around the bases would you get in 10.83 seconds? That's how long it took Elly De La Cruz to get to third base. I'm not entirely sure I could get to first base in 10.83. I guess I probably could. And I can maybe make my turn around first base. Could you get to third base, Nate?
If I ran backwards, if I started with third base.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's incredible.
I don't know. I just want to wax poetic about Elly. That's how fast it took Elly to get to third. Jeff Amlunk at JAmlunk429. If Joey Votto has a solid year, 275, 350, 430, 10 to 15 homers, 50 plus RBIs, and a reasonable glove at first base, do they pick up his option? Now, this is something we'll probably talk about for a while here. So look at 275, 350, 430, 10 to 15 homers, 50 plus RBIs, reasonable glove at first base. Do they pick up his option? They should, because he's Joey Votto. I just don't. The problem is if they pick up his option, if they don't pick up his option, they have to pay him $7 million to go away. If they do pick up his option, they have to pay him $20 million. And I'll be honest with you, I know he's a team legend. I love the guy. I hope he comes back and proves everybody wrong. I'm rooting for that guy more than anybody I've ever rooted for. I don't think the Reds pay him $20 million next year based on the current. They don't owe no money to anyone next year, so they can afford it. There's no question they can afford it. I just don't think they do it, and it would really upset me. Now, I could see, though, them and Joey getting together and renegotiating.
That's it.
So you think that could happen?
Yes. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily optimistic, but that's what they should be trying to do. Just talk to Joey at the end of the season, see how he's done, and say, Joey, I don't care. I don't care if he doesn't get a hit. If he strikes out every at bat for the rest of the season, be like, hey, let's have a reasonable conversation. Let's see if we can't find something that works for both teams, allows us to pay you the respect that you deserve, but allows us to maximize this window of young talent. What can we do? Do you want 2 years with a player option, team option? I don't know. Some reasonable average annual value. But yeah, $20 million is going to be hard to stomach for the Castellinis, period. But much less for a guy who the other option is to save $13 million.
Oh, goodness. I don't want to even think about that. Why'd you ask us that question, man? All right, next question comes from at Deviled Eggs on Twitter. First of all, I love the fact that you went on Twitter, you had to create a profile, and you named that's 3 M's, Deviled Eggs. Good call. With folks coming off the injured list, who's going back to Louisville? And when Votto comes back, will he primarily be the DH? I'll take the second one first. I don't think he'll primarily be the DH. I think he'll play a lot of DH. I think he's going to be your primary first baseman.
I agree.
You agree with that? Okay. So who's going back to Louisville? And my answer to that is, you've got plenty of options. Back to Louisville or gone. I mean, frankly, this 3, especially with the crunch that we're going to have with Joey Votto coming back and with Christian Encarnacion or Carlos Encarnacion Steer being on the big league roster, you're going to have a lot of infielders. Tyler Stevens is going to have to be the primary catcher. That's the only way to get him in the line. So this three-headed monster at catcher has got to go. Whether you get rid of Kirk Casale, or Luke Maile, I don't know. I can argue for either of them.
Mm-hmm.
I like the veteran presence. I like what Casale brings. He's not hitting much. Maile, I don't know. He's a handsome dude. He's a local kid. The guy that I think needs to go and probably won't because fire David Bell. Kevin Newman. I mean, he's superfluous at some point. You have to designate him for assignment. I just don't. I know he's your leadoff hitter, but he's the guy. I think so. I don't know if you have any other options other than those, Nate.
My guy Stu Fairchild probably,
Mm-hmm.
and
I don't hate Stuart Fairchild, but
no,
he's just an odd man out.
Yeah, he's a 4A player. We're running out of space for those kind of guys. I think that you need to have a conversation about Will Myers, who
good call.
Probably deserves a chance to come and get hot and see if he can't be a trade piece. But also, we just didn't expect the team to have this much talent. So I don't know if you're able to stick with that plan, even though I agree with the plan when they made those decisions. Mm-hmm. And then for me, is there anybody else? Well, one thing I want to see before anything happens to this guy is I want Jose Barrero to get a couple weeks worth of regular at bats. He's barely even seen the field. Get him out there. Let's figure out for sure what we have with him or don't have. And if we don't have it, then he's got to be one of those guys. Yeah. And I think he has an option left, so they can send him down.
Right. And that's the frustration with Kevin Newman that we should have talked about earlier. With him playing so
100%.
much, why aren't those at bats going to Barrero? Barrero's probably not a guy, but he has way more of a chance of being a guy than Kevin Newman. We've had that conversation. We don't need to repeat it. Mike Bittenbender, this is at Dr. MBFP on the Twitters. Mike Bittenbender, friend of the show. When Elly gets inducted into Cooperstown, inevitably, should his plaque have the traditional Reds cap or the City Connect version? You know what the answer is? When he's inducted into Cooperstown, he's going to have a Los Angeles Dodgers cap on.
Oh, you stop it.
Oh, my goodness. I'm really upset with myself for even making that joke. It's not funny.
You are canceled.
It's the traditional Reds cap. It's not the City Connect. By the way, my son, who, is coming back into the fold, loves the City Connect. He wears his City Connect hat everywhere. He wore it to the Railbird Festival down in Lexington last weekend. Had a good time.
He survived. That's good.
He did. Love some Tyler Childers, that guy. All right, last question from Isaac. And I'm not sure this is a real person because his name on Twitter is @WrestlingFanBot. So he may be a bot. But all right, here's and this is a question that we probably could take 20 minutes to talk about. So we're gonna have to kind of run through it. Native Ohioan. This is kind of what we've been touching on with the Elly De La Cruz effect on the Reds. I had so many people tweet at me saying, I haven't watched the game all year, but I'm watching now. Native Ohioan, relatively new baseball fan, but have fallen in love with this team this season. It'd be cool if you guys ranked all the players on the team so that someone in my shoes knows what's going on, what to expect during plate appearances, and on defense. Thanks. Love the show. First of all, I love the question because, I think about the Reds. I've loved them since I was 8 years old. And I used to love to read about the history of the team. And that ended up getting passed down to you a little bit. You had to, you were born into it. What about somebody that, is 21 years old and says, I like that Elly. I want to get into this team. How do you learn about, the team? And I think about this a lot because 12 years ago or so, I started watching Premier League soccer and learning about what happened before I started watching was really hard. How do you understand the franchise? So to learn about the team, you read the Big 50. But the current team, I guess, let's as quickly as we can, Nate, rank all the players. I don't know that we can rank them 1 through 26, but the guys.
Yeah. I mean, forgive us if we get the order wrong here. But I would say the first thing you want to do is just reserve 30 minutes, YouTube Joey Votto's greatest moments and just start there, because you are coming in at the end of his career, and my friend, you missed out on quite literally some of the best baseball ever played by a Cincinnati Red.
Yeah, you need to respect what he did. Even if he comes back and he's not Joey Votto, he's Joey Votto. I think that's a perfect way to start, Nate. After that, it's kind of, I think the kids are a good place to start if you're just coming in, because these are going to be the guys Elly De La Cruz, obviously, but Matt McLain. We haven't even mentioned McLain hardly in the show. He's been amazing since he came up. And so he's a guy. I think Jonathan. Go ahead.
Yep. That's what I was going to say. I said, as a new fan, I want to direct you towards Jonathan India, because he plays a really fun brand of baseball. He's got the flowing locks. He's in the community. He's a guy that has 100% approval rating by everybody else in the league and in the city. You're going to find some people to talk about Jonathan India with.
And I hinted towards there's a conversation to be had. Is he an odd man out? And I don't want to have that conversation, because I love Jonathan India. Jonathan India is a really good player. He's really fun to watch. And Rookie of the Year, probably going to make it into the next edition of the Big 50. Have I pimped that book enough yet here today, Nate? So that's it. And I think Tyler Stevenson, he got mad at him for his first 100 bats this year, which it wasn't great. But there's some signs recently, and Tyler Stevenson is a really good player, and I don't understand why people are upset. Well, I do understand his power. He's not hitting power this year until recently, but man, he's looking good lately. That's the next guy probably.
I would have put somebody, as much as I love Tyler, and I do, Hunter Greene. We got to talk about Hunter.
Haven't even mentioned Hunter. Yeah, no, Hunter needs to be above India and. Maybe above all these guys, frankly. Hunter Greene.
Yeah, yes. When the dust settles, Hunter Greene might end up having the best major league career of anybody on this Reds team right now. What he is doing at his age is, I won't say, it's not never happened, but it's almost never happened.
The Reds have Hunter and Elly, who are like unicorns.
Yes.
Good Lord.
If you're just hanging around, talking to your friends, I don't know how old you are, but sometimes buddies like to rib on each other. They like to talk some smack, talk some gruff. I don't know if I want to do what Royal Tenenbaum would say, but you want to do that and you want to have some fun with your buddies. Just make fun of Mike Moustakas for me. He's not a Red anymore, but they're still paying him. So just make fun of Mike Moustakas.
I love it. And so, the rest of them, Will Benson, I talk about all the time. I love Will Benson. I exaggerate a little because that's what I do here. But TJ Friel's a fun guy to watch. Jake Fraley's a fun guy to watch. Nick Lodolo, he's injured right now, and I'm worried about how long he's going to be out. But he's, 1A, 1A with Hunter Greene in terms of future ability. Nate loves Graham Ashcraft and all the hefty boys. The point here is that actually – you picked a really good time to come in because there's been some crap for the last 10 years. There's been some garbage. And there have been very few teams that have actually had some fun guys. That 2021 team, the Castellanos team, bunch of fun guys. I enjoyed that team. The Reds kind of failed them by not trying to improve the team, but there's some fun guys. There haven't been this many fun guys on a team in a long time. So they're not good yet, but they're getting there. Yeah, they're knocking on the door. That's, again, I talk about Virginia sports too much, but that's what Tony Bennett, Virginia's basketball coach, always says is they're like the thing they have in their locker room is a door knocker. They're like, you keep working. If you knock on the door enough, at some point you're going to get through. So the Reds are getting to that point. So I don't know. I think it's a great question. At Wrestling Fanbot. If you're not actually a Twitter bot, DM me. We may find a way to get you to our Slack channel where you can talk to some people that can help answer that question, because we need to support new Reds fans. So.
And if I would be remiss to not mention, I don't know how you said you're relatively new to baseball. Closers can be kind of cool when utilized correctly, and the Reds have statistically this year, I think, the best closer in baseball.
How do we not mention him this whole episode? I forget about him. He's great.
You are against my Puerto Rican brethren.
Alexis Diaz is who we're talking about, obviously.
Yeah.
Just amazing. I went to MLB.com earlier today. I was going to pull up the standings, so I had him here so we could talk about him during the show. And there was a big graphic, and I was like, "There's Alexis Diaz in the center of a graphic on the homepage of MLB.com. What are we doing here?" And then the article was about guys who may be traded at the trade deadline. Get the blank out of here.
That's enough.
Yes. Get out of here. Don't trade that guy. All right, Nate, what else is going on around the riverfront right now?
Nothing, because we've gone an hour and 11 minutes.
Good Lord, you're right.
Go back and check out the recording from the live video, the emergency pod after Elly's first game. If you want to feed off the energy of what Cincinnati's feeling right now, that episode does it.
Yeah, it was as much fun as we've had on the show in a long time. Although I had fun tonight. Listen, we do have to get out of here. Thanks for listening to The Riverfront. Please remember to subscribe to the show either on YouTube or in your favorite podcast app. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're at Riverfront Cincy on all those platforms. Big thank you, as always, to our friends at patreon.com/Riverfront Cincy, where this show would literally not be possible without your support. And more than anything, tell your friends. If you like us, tell your friends. That's how you grow a show, and this community continues to grow steadily, and I love it. We love all of our new friends, so thank you. Hey, listen, Nate, this was fun, buddy, but we got to get out, so just don't say another word, okay? Exactly. Shout out to Adam Dunn. Shouts to Lisa Alberto and Wayne Krenchicki and Eli Cash for Nate Dodson and Paul Yanish. This is Chad Dodson saying, so long, everyone.